Okay, here we go. Well, I want to say hello to everyone. Welcome to our quarterly wellness workshop that we host here for all WashU employees. I want to introduce myself and also introduce my colleague that will be joining me today in our wellness workshop. So you do see my name says Maggie Danford. My name is Rashonda Thornton, and Maggie will actually be the one doing the cooking demonstration. So I wanted to, again, thank you on behalf of our HR. We always make sure that we're supplying ways to keep wellness in the forefront of our lives. And so we produce particular presentations such as this. Once we get done, I do want to let you know that you can go on to our Microsoft Teams channel and you will see this recorded posting on there so you can have another opportunity to watch it if you get a chance to watch all of it today. And then we also want to make sure that you guys are have any questions that throughout this time of the presentation, feel free to just ask questions via chat, and we'll also create some time after the presentation to answer any questions that you guys may have. So we're going to move on to the next slide. If I can get there. Here we go. So a few things about some of the things that we provide as far as the MyWell Health team. Some of you are familiar with us and some of you may not be familiar with us, but the foundation of our service that we provide two different prongs to wellness for our employees at WashU. We do individual wellness programming where we work with, individual wellness consultations, where we offer at least 4 sessions per year for any employees on campus or away. And we also use those times to have more customized conversations that answers any of your questions or give you any help, any tips, any education related to your wellness and your health. We also host 3 times a year a 12-month program called My Way to Healthy Weight maintenance program. And within that, we do a little more of a more intensive, deeper dive where you enroll into this 12-month programming and there's curricular involved. But the goal of that is to help to build healthy habits, along with work through the barriers that we struggle with in lieu of weight loss, if that's one of the goals, but not just weight loss, but beginning weight loss and also maintaining it for more long-term changes. In addition to that, we also have other things on campus that we offer. We have our annual screenings where participants are able to come and there's on-site event screening that happens where you come and you can do your biometric screening, and that allows you to be able to know kind of what your health status is or any type of readings that will be helpful for you to know how to address. And within that, we take different readings. The MyWell Health team, that's also going to be offered to you through those wellness screenings where we do a lot of other things where we can measure your BMI, your waist circumference, and do more in-person sessions. And myself, I'm a registered dietitian along with my team. All of us are registered dietitians. We work with you on specific lifestyle changes to help you control and gain control of your numbers. So the topic of today's conversation, we felt it was great timing because it's getting warmer outside. We're going to be more active. The weather is better. You're going to be more encouraged to go outside. And so definitely because outdoor activities are going to start becoming more common in our lives right now, we want to make sure that we are healthy and fueling our bodies appropriately. So we are getting a great workout, feeling good, and actually promoting the ones that we truly want. So our topic is going to be fueling first for physical activity. And the question it could be, why is fueling so important? I like to equivocate that to, let's say, a vehicle. A vehicle needs gas in order for it to move. And if there's lack of gas or even other things that are needed for a vehicle when it comes to oil changes, maintenance, our body needs similar things. We need to make sure our body's fueled to help us to not just exercise, but help our body to feel good and be able to perform at its best and also recover afterwards. So it's important to make sure we know how to fuel. A lot of times we may get out there, we may just start working out, we're not really knowing like what types of energy sources our body needs. And then that can really truncate our ability to exercise, or sometimes it can cause other health conditions. So we want to make sure that we know how to properly or appropriately give our body the nutrients that it needs so we can properly fuel when we're doing physical activity. So let's talk about the importance of fueling. One thing I would say about importance of fueling, fueling is more of the dietary fueling, what we're eating and what converts into glucose, which gives our body the energy to use that. And so we want to make sure that we are maintaining our glucose concentrations, because we don't want it to go too high or too low, because that can have detrimental on our health. And so fueling our body, which gives us the appropriate amounts of glucose, will allow our body to use that and convert it over to movement versus having to glean it from other sources. Just like anything, you give your body proper fueling, you're going to be able to work out better. And again, sometimes it's kind of difficult to have something before you eat, or it may feel like it sits in your stomach. And in the beginning, it may be something that is not normal, but I would encourage just to have a little bit of some sort of fueling in the beginning. And then over time, you'll find that your body starts to depend on it. Then it'll be more to where you are actually going to need fueling as you exercise. Also, I always like to tell people, when they have really great workouts or they have good workouts, and I ask them how they fueled, and they may say, no, not really. And I say, well, if you think you feel good now, just wait till you actually give your body that fueling you need, and your workout's going to be so much more better. So definitely want to emphasize the importance of fueling as far as maximizing our exercise and performance. And outside of our exercise, whether it's running, weight training, walking, cycling, yoga, any type of exercise activity, we're utilizing our muscle tissue. So we want to make sure that we also appropriately fueling afterwards, because that's going to help improve recovery for our muscle tissues. They can heal and be ready to go for the next time. And if our muscles are not fatigued because they're getting fuel, it can be very, very beneficial to preventing injury. A lot of times we have injuries because we're tired, we're not fueled properly, and so we're not able, so our body kind of gives out, or we're not as keen on coordination. So fueling, again, helps to prevent injuries. So I'm going to go into the different types of fueling, and I encourage you, if you have paper and pen, this is a great opportunity to take notes, because I definitely want you to have a better understanding of how your body is fueled and what types of fuel source to use for your given activity. So the types of fuel that we're going to talk about is going to be carbohydrates, proteins, fats, water, hydration, vitamins and nutrients that we need, and electrolytes. So those are all components to our body's fueling sources, not just before, but also during and after. So we're going to go through all those different areas in this particular workshop. So let's talk about carbohydrates. I want to give a clear understanding when it comes to fueling. Our number one body's fueling source is going to be carbohydrates. And there's definitely different types of carbohydrates. There's a plethora of different types of carbohydrates. So we actually want to know kind of what's going to be the more beneficial ones. I would definitely say, if you wanted to be able to compare the two, we have two different types of carbohydrates. We have our simple carbohydrates and we have our complex carbohydrates. So depending on your exercise activity, if you're doing something more endurance, you want something more complex, because it takes time for your body to break it down. There's fiber involved, but it creates longer fueling for your activity. So your complex carbohydrates are our brown rices, our potatoes, our corn, our grains, our breads, and our pastas. Those are going to be whole grains, of course. Those are going to be your more complex. Your more simple carbohydrates are ones that are going to burn up quite quickly. They're useful as well, but depending on the activity, you definitely want to be wary on what type of simple carbohydrates you are having. So, for example, candy and sugar beverages, products with added sugar. Fruit is a simple carbohydrate, but it's actually a great type of carb that will be good for your fueling, because even though it's 98% water, it provides a lot of the minerals and nutrients that we need, along with fiber. So fruit falls into the same category, but it's probably the number one fueling source for physical activity. Why is it carbohydrates are so useful? Well, they maintain our glycogen stores. So not to get too deep into it, but glycogen stores are the additional glucose stores that we have in our muscle tissue that our body uses as preserves. And so it allows those preserves to still be there, so our muscles don't fatigue out. But also carbohydrates carry oxygen to our muscles, which allows our muscles to function at a higher capacity. And it's the most loved nutrient. Your body loves carbs. It fuels off of carbs. So when it comes to before you work out, you want to probably consider something more carb centered. And I would definitely recommend something like a fruit, something soft that can break down quite easily and not sit on your stomach. So perhaps try a few different types of fruits out this summer or like this late spring and have that before you do your exercise activity. So the next fueling source is protein. So proteins is fueling, but it's not fueling before your activity more so. It's more so coming behind your activity because it replenishes, it restores your muscle tissues. And I just kind of showed you the bulletin of carbohydrates that said it was 100% used for energy. Well, protein is not a really good conductor of energy. It's only 30% conductor of energy. So in other words, you may not want to have like, a couple of boiled eggs or have a piece of deli meat and go for a run because your body won't convert that protein over into efficient energy. So again, the fruit is going to be more so what you want to fuel your body with. Again, because it's protein sources is built from amino acids, and that's what ensures muscle protein synthesis, which is basically the building and the creation of muscle tissue. So want to make sure that we are inserting protein more so after workouts, but still having it throughout the day because your muscle tissues are still need to be fed off of amino acids throughout the entirety of the day, not necessarily right after you work out. I think talk about protein is, yes, it does build lean muscle tissue, but also contributes to protecting our body's immunity. So you think about protein, I think about muscle, I think about the intertwines of our bones, right? The framework. We have organs, we have tissues. So we need those protein source also to protect our immune system and to have it more optimized. And again, afterwards, those amino acids go into your muscle tissues after you tear them through your different exercise activity. Anytime you're sore, that's probably because you're torn some muscle tissue, which is a good thing. We want to make sure that we're replenishing it with that protein source. So that's what the protein source is. So it helps to replenish, repair, so your muscle tissue can heal and you'll be able to get back out to your exercise activity the next time. The second fueling source, that's going to be our healthy fats. Healthy fats are great. They're not as efficient. As you see, they're only 50% utilized for energy. So again, it's not as efficient as carbohydrates, but better than proteins. The reason why? Well, it takes our body 2 times longer to break down fats. So it takes a while to convert that into energy. And that's going to be more so for sports that involves more endurance activities like cycling or like running, let's say more than 45 minutes runs, any type of long endurance, low, moderate exercise activity. That's where you want to bring in, that's where fat would be a great fueling source to contribute to your fueling along with carbohydrates. Again, as I said, for endurance sports, it ensures sustained energy. So it gives your body that ability to feed off that fueling as it's moving. And again, just as carbohydrates protect our glycogen stores, our glucose stores that we have in our muscle tissues. Outside of just the physical activity, it protects our organs. It assists in transport of fat-soluble vitamins. It supports enzymatic and hormonal reactions to break down of macros. So there's a lot of more physiological components to fats that contributes to our body's functioning outside of just the fueling part. But again, whether it's during your activity or just helping the internal processes of your body, fat is a great contributor. So it's more important to know when to use it and depending on your exercise activity. So again, that's going to be more centered around your endurance sports or endurance exercises. So we can't forget, we think about our macro, we talk about the carbohydrates, the fats, and the protein. Yes, those are considered macronutrients because they convert into energy, which your body uses. But outside of the energy, the direct energy sources, we also want to think about essential nutrients because our body needs those minerals and those vitamins to support our body's ability just to be at its best health. So some ones we definitely want to consider, especially as we're aging, is going to be making sure our iron levels are at its appropriate amount because iron assists in bringing oxygen to the muscles. It also increases the energy of our body, and it also contributes to increasing our immunity system as well. So thinking about your more iron fortified foods, we're thinking about our beans and legumes, our our protein, our animal protein sources, strawberries, a great source of iron. So there's a list of a lot of foods that you can incorporate that has a good amount of natural iron. That you want to make sure that you keep in your Rolodex of eat foods that you're eating. Also, let's not forget calcium and vitamin D. We need it for our bone health. We want to make sure that it's not just supports our bones, it supports our muscles. It helps build strength, so especially when we are getting up in age or as the body is aging, we want to make sure we're maintaining that muscle and bone health. And again, it also contributes to increasing our immune system. So it's just something good to know. That's as far as what sources of vitamin D. A lot of dairy products come with calcium and vitamin D. You can get vitamin D and calcium fortified products. So there's a list of different, even vegetables also provide those. So there's a lot of different foods that provides sometimes multiple types of minerals, and some may be heavier than some than others. So just making sure that you're considering that when you're thinking about your fueling. We can't forget about water. We need water. I say water is our body's habitat. Like our body needs water to live. Not just live, just to function. Water has multiple positive benefits, but in respect to this particular topic, water is important because it replenishes our body fluids. It carries, again, oxygen to our muscle tissue. Our muscles are living organs. They need to breathe. So having carbohydrates, having iron, having water, having that as a consistent source of fueling is going to give your muscle the ability to breathe and to function. You ever notice when you get cramps, more so because you're dehydrated, and that's one of the reasons. Increase our blood volume level in our muscle tissues. So increasing blood volume levels actually increases our blood capacity and ability to flow in and throughout our muscle tissues, which helps to feed them. So we want to make sure water is there because it helps to raise that blood level. Ensures optimal breathing as far as our VO2 max, our respiratory system, which by the byproduct is improving exercise performance, and it also supports fat oxidation. A few other things, it regulates body temperature. So as I was saying, as it gets warmer outside, our body temperature is also going to increase. So we don't want to get overheated. We don't want to burn out. So drinking that water helps to cool our systems down so we don't overheat. It lubricates our joints. It also delivers nutrients to our cells. It also contributes to our sleep, our performance, our cognition. Again, as I said, water is our body's habitat. So it's one of the most important nutrients that our body needs on a regular basis. So definitely want to encourage you all to keep making sure you're keeping yourself hydrated on a regular basis. So what happens when we're not getting that fueling, or we're not getting the appropriate amount, or we're not getting a good combination of it? Well, our body can only do so much. Just as I said, the car example, if we're not giving our body that fueling, it can only go so far. It can only perform so much. So what are some signs of lack of fueling? Where obviously our body just only goes so far. So we have a lot of body and muscle fatigue. As I said earlier, not having the fueling, whether it's hydration, having the right type of carbohydrates, we're also prone to muscle cramping. It puts stress on the body because your body's trying to figure out how to keep moving you when it has limited ability, when it doesn't have the fueling that it needs, doesn't have the hydration that it needs and mineral and vitamins that it needs to allow it to move at a better level. And by doing so, it counters all the things we're wanting to do. If our goal is to be more healthier, and if we're not fueling our body properly, we're actually countering our body's ability to get to those next levels of health, whether it's cardiorespiratory health, whether it's muscular strength health, whatever focus, whatever it is that we're trying, activity we're doing, we're still limited only by how well we're fueling our body. So I'm gonna give you guys some time to think on that. Again, it's hoping you're creating notes. And as you're pondering on the different types of source of fueling and how your body responds to it, I want to turn it over to Maggie Danford, who will be doing the cooking demonstration. And speaking of protein, she actually has a really cool recipe she wants to share with you all. So I'm gonna turn it over to you, Maggie.
Okay. Hello. Everyone can hear me. Looks like I'm good. Okay. Good afternoon, everybody. So good to see you all. I guess I can't see all of your faces from here. My name is Maggie Danforth. I'm one of the wellness consultants with My Way to Health. I'm a registered dietitian. I'm a fitness enthusiast. So I've been really excited about, comments. I'm sorry, I'm seeing comments pop up. I want to make sure you all can hear me okay. Let me get a little closer. Everyone hear me? Oh, okay, good. All right, we just got questions. Thanks, everybody. So I've spent a lot of my time being plant forward, meaning I haven't eaten a lot of meat, but I decided to change that a little bit this year. Not to say that you can't get all of your essential amino acids or all of your proteins from plants, because you can, and we'll talk more about that in my second recipe, but I've just been excited. I think I needed a change with my protein, and it just felt right. And so I've been working with more leaner meats, which is why we chose to do the turkey trot meatballs for this presentation. So hopefully we will definitely have the recipes available to you on the Microsoft Teams page, and also on your, we'll be emailing this to you as well. But the most important part, right, is that this is a protein. And so we're gonna start with the turkey, right? It's ground turkey. And it's meatballs, so it's pretty easy. I think that's another piece of the puzzle, right? Is that we are choosing things that are kind of easy to make, because I know a lot of you are busy. So I've got the ground turkey, I've got an egg, and I'm gonna go ahead and change my gloves really quick, which I guess I don't really need to, but I come from hospital food service, so I change my gloves just compulsively, I think. So we've got the ground turkey, we've got grated Parmesan cheese, which is a leaner cheese. And then I've got spices in here, which are really basic, and most of us have these in our pantry. It's salt, pepper, and garlic powder. So we'll do that. I chopped up some parsley, so there's a 1/4 cup of parsley here. And then almond flour. So a lot of times breadcrumbs are used in meatball recipes, but this is a gluten-free recipe for any of you that are trying to watch your gluten intake, or that if you're gluten intolerant, this is a good recipe for you. It's also lower in carbohydrates, which as I was thinking about it, I'm like, maybe that means there's more room for pasta, which is what I would want to spend my carbohydrates on, right? So yeah, basically just smushing it all together, making sure it's all thoroughly mixed. I will say part of being plant forward with proteins is, you know, not having, I just haven't dealt with meat a whole lot. So maybe that's why I changed my gloves so much too. So once you have this pretty well mixed, you'll want to set it in the refrigerator for about 15 minutes, just to kind of let the flavor be soaked up. And then we'll pretend, right? We'll pretend that I've done that. We'll use, I basically did rounded tablespoons of the meatballs. But ultimately you want to make about 16 for this recipe. So sometimes I like using a tablespoon scoop to help round it out a little bit in advance. Yeah, and so you'll put these on parchment paper. You'll have your oven set at 400, and then you'll cook them for 15 minutes. And then after 15 minutes, you'll turn them over. That's an important piece. We want them to cook evenly, bake evenly, of course. And so, yeah, I'm not gonna make you watch me roll all of these out, but I do have the finished product here. And it is approved by the My Way to Health staff. I wish I could share all of this with you. I think you can see those. Yeah, so they're kind of toasty brown. After you flip them, the first 15 minutes, you'll put them back in for another 15 minutes. And then it should be cooked to 170 degrees for poultry. You know, or you can split it apart and make sure there's no pink in there. That's also something that folks will do. But yeah, so this is a really delicious recipe. Like I said, of course, meatballs are mostly considered or thought of with pasta. You can use, if you want to keep it low carb, you can use zucchini noodles or spaghetti squash. That's always a yummy, yummy option. And it's squash season almost, so that's exciting. So those are good options. You can also make this into like a rice bowl. Or some kind of grain bowl, right? It doesn't need to be Italian themed necessarily. Of course, the parsley kind of makes it a little that way, but you can add other toppings or sauces to make it more Greek or Mediterranean, just depending on what your taste buds want. So yeah, I really like this alternative, again, because it's a lean protein. So I'm not eating a lot of saturated fat, because that's something we need to pay attention to when we're eating meat. There is a good amount of saturated fat in it. Of course, eggs also have saturated fat, but you know, at least we're choosing a lean protein for the bulk of the meal, right? So along with my enthusiasm about protein, there's some interesting evidence that says that getting protein in the morning helps protein synthesis and builds our muscles better. Like our absorption of protein might be higher by about 15% in the morning, which is really interesting because you would think that it would have to be like after exercise, which it's a good idea to fuel after exercise, which we'll talk about in a couple slides here. But that could be something to consider. I think the biggest takeaway is that if you think about your typical breakfast, it's really low in protein and really high in carbohydrates, right? So that's not to say carbs are bad, but I would, and I am, because I was eating a higher carb breakfast for a while, start paying attention to ways that you can incorporate more protein in those morning hours to support that protein synthesis for the rest of the day. Because regardless of your fitness level, it is really important that we are getting enough protein, you know? And so, because our muscles they break down all day long, right? Not too terribly much unless we're doing an intensive exercise. So make sure you're getting a high protein breakfast. That can look like lean meats, lean dairy products, right? My go-to is Greek yogurt. You know, nuts, nut butters have a good amount of protein in them. Eggs, of course. And I'm probably thinking of something really obvious, or not mentioning something obvious, but anyways, that's my 2 cents. I hope you all enjoy. I'm going to turn it back to Carla.
Okay, well, Maggie, I do appreciate you showing us how to make those wonderful turkey meatballs and giving us other options outside of just the turkey meat. And it was really interesting to learn about the protein intake having a higher percentage of absorption early in the morning. I think that's an awesome new research that was found. And the more we learn about our bodies and how do we fuel, I think that just adds on to giving us more reasons to make sure that protein is something that we think about in the morning time. So, and Maggie will be on a few more moments. She got something else she's going to make. But in between, I'm going to start to go back to our conversation. So we can start talking about timing of our other foods that we're eating in regards to our exercise activity, like when to eat it, how much to eat it, what to eat. And so we're going to dig into that just now. If I can get this slide, here we go. Give me 1 second, guys. I'm trying to navigate. Here we go. Okay, so the question is, okay, now we're talking about fueling, the types of fueling we should implement, or the recommended fueling we should implement in our exercise activity. Now the question is when to fuel, before activity. So we're going to talk about before, during, and after. So as I said earlier, carbs, our body loves carbs. It's our number one fueling source. So we want to kind of focus on eating those healthy carbohydrates. And this is just a list of some complex ones that actually breaks down quite easily, and we can modify and diversify it any way that we can. Whole grain cereals. That's actually one of my favorite ones. I have a small bowl of whole grain cereal with a half a banana before I do my running and I do my weight training. So that's something that I do on a regular basis. Whole wheat toast. Sometimes just having 1 or 2 slices of toast, putting a little bit of preserves on there. That's a great combination of soft, easy, absorbable carbohydrates. It has complexity to it. Whole grain pasta, maybe not a bolus pasta, but maybe a small amount before your exercise activity, or some other grain like brown rice, or more of a starchy vegetable like potatoes or beans or something like that. Again, depends on the amount. It's dependent upon the exercise activity that you're doing. So, maybe just do a little bit of a test and figure out which carbohydrates you feel works better for your stomach, and just kind of experiment a little bit on what you feel works for your body. We do want to make sure that we're avoiding more of the saturated fats. We not really want to avoid healthy protein, but remember, protein is not going to be one of the gunners of energy. So we want to make sure we're not getting a lot of saturated fats, a lot of fried foods, a lot of high fatty animal fat sources, because that's really going to slow down our that make our digestion slower, and it just kind of sits in our stomach, and it's not really going to provide that oxygen and energy that we get from our blood into our muscles. Remember, the carbohydrates brings that oxygen to the blood. So high fats and the protein source is not going to bring that oxygen and energy delivering blood into our muscles. And of course, water. Make sure we drink water beforehand we work out. We don't really drink a lot of water because we don't want it to just kind of sit in our stomach and just kind of make us kind of sick because we have too much. I was always told drink anywhere from 10 to 16 ounces, 20 to 30 minutes before your exercise activity. So that gives it time for it to, absorb into your system or just settle in. And again, it gives your body time to increase that blood flow to the tissues. Again, it's probably good to drink water anyway before you do any activity because of the weather, but just make sure you drink about anywhere from 10 to 16 ounces, depends on your body's needs, your body size, type of exercise activity that you're doing. And then during activity, we want to make sure we stay hydrated. So you don't want to take big ounces. You don't want to focus around the 10 to 16 ounces when you're working out. I say anywhere from 5 to like 6 ounces of water as you're running or as you're in a physical activity throughout your exercise activity. So you're just kind of replenishing and make sure, because you're sweating, right? So when you sweat, salt, water leaves your body. So we want to make sure we bring in more water in, so we're again not overheating or we're fatiguing out because we're losing water as we're working out. When you're breathing, you're losing water, right? So there's different ways that we're losing water. So just making sure you're kind of sipping just to kind of maintain that balance of of your body's hydration during your exercise activity. Here's an interesting fact to know how important water is for our exercise activity. Just being dehydrated by 3% can decrease your performance by 30 to 40%. So again, I can't emphasize enough of how important it is to make sure that you're hydrated in your physical activity. Even if you just think you got enough water, it just doesn't hurt to drink a little bit more. I promise your body will find a way to use it. It would really appreciate it. As far as foods, if you're not really working out more than like an hour, we don't need to make sure, there's no like fueling in between your exercise activity, unless it's something very, very high intense and you're outside. You may need to pack like a little bag of grapes or something in your bag, or some strawberries, or maybe a peeled cutie, something that you can kind of like eat in pieces, so that you just kind of feed your body, give you a little bit of glucose in between your workouts. So again, that's for longer stretch workouts, or like say if you're outside, if it's just really hot outside, your body's burning up calories, burned up feeling quicker, you may find that you find yourself hungry in the middle of some of your workouts. And that doesn't mean sometimes it means we have the ability to increase our physical fitness, but sometimes it also means your body is not needing that fueling source. I always say a few like quick ways to know if your body is lacking fueling when you're exercising. Sometimes your muscles start to feel tingly, or you start to feel nauseated or a little dizzy, or you start to get a headache, or you start to feel like mottled, like a cold sweat. That's sometimes signs that you're dehydrated, or your body's needing some fueling. So, don't be afraid to pack a small banana with you whenever you go do some sort of activity, because you never know when you're going to need it. So what about after your workout? Well, we want to make sure, again, we talked about protein. Maggie did a great job talking about the importance of protein and giving us those little nuances that I myself have actually just learned not too long ago. But we want to make sure after we work out, we're fueling we're replenishing our what we've lost, we're replacing what we lost, replenishing the stores. We talked about those glycogen stores in our muscle tissues, and we help to contribute to the rebuilding and the repair of our muscles. Again, when you're working out, you're tearing muscle tissue. We don't build muscle working out, build muscle lifting weights. We're actually tearing the muscle tissue down, which is what we're supposed to do. That's why it's so important to make sure we reinfuse it with those amino acids, with those healthy carbohydrates, with that water, so our muscle tissue can have the ability to grow, protein synthesis, reheal, so it can be ready to, your soreness level will be lesser, because your body's repairing itself quicker, which means you can get back out there and increase your physical activity and increase the frequency of it as well. So again, thinking about your fueling afterwards is a part of fueling. It's making sure your body is getting what it needs after this physical activity. All right, so now one of Maggie's wonderful creations, she's going to show us how to make this creamy chocolate tofu pudding. This is, again, maybe great for some individuals that know about tofu, but kind of worry about it. She does tofu a lot in her recipes. So she came up with this fun idea of one way that you can use tofu as a snack. And so I want to give it over to her and let her explore the world of tofu with you all.
The wonderful world of tofu. Perfect. Thank you, Rashonda. Yes, I've been a tofu enthusiast as well. So I'm enthusiastic about a whole lot of things. What can I say? So our dessert today is going to be plant forward. It is vegan, so that's great. It's going to be a creamy chocolate tofu pudding. What's great about this recipe is it's versatile. So you can either eat this alone, right, as a snack or as a dessert, really, because there is a good amount of sugar in it. Or you can pour it into a pie. You can also add some peanut butter or almond butter to make it even more delicious. That's actually how I experienced it the first time, was with some peanut butter, but we skipped that today. So for this type of dish, you're gonna choose the silken tofu, okay? You probably can't read this, but this is the Nasoya brand that you can find usually in the produce section. I think that trips people up sometimes, where to find tofu in the grocery store. It's usually in the produce section. And for this dessert, we're gonna use the silken tofu. So this is about 16 ounces, and there is some liquid in there that you can drain out. Okay, and I'm just gonna put it in here. As you can see, it's very pudding-like, so it's perfect for this. And then to make it chocolatey, there's a lot of recipes out there that you can melt chocolate chips. You can use like, a cacao, mostly cacao chocolate bar and melt that. And melting chocolate can be a little tricky. You usually need like a double burner to melt the chocolate because you don't want to burn it. But we found a recipe that is just cacao powder. So cocoa powder, but it does have a good amount of cacao in it, which is generally considered a more heart-healthy version of chocolate. And so I've combined the 4th cup of cacao and a 4th cup of sugar. And so I'm gonna go ahead and put that in here. Mostly you just pour it all into a blender and blend it. So it's really simple. Also some maple syrup. Cacao can be super bitter, so you really need to counteract it with sugar, unfortunately, to be able to tolerate it well. And another key ingredient when you're working with cacao powder or cocoa powder is going to be vanilla extract. Okay, that's going to help take that bite out of the powder. And this calls for 1 teaspoon of it. So this. Simple as that. Okay, so I'm going to blend it up. So if you want to mute me, you can do that. Feel free to, because it might be a little loud. Yeah, so this is, you can't see over here, but it is looking really creamy and delicious thanks to that silken tofu, right? So it probably needs another minute or so to get it all blended together. But I won't make you listen to that anymore. I'll blend it up. I'll blend up the rest here in a minute. But what you would do is pour it into a ramekin and then put it in the refrigerator or freezer if you want to expedite the process. And for best consistency, you'll probably want to keep it in there for about an hour. I know when I first, because this, it's pretty liquidy. If I were to pour it, I'll pour some of it into it. It's pretty pourable. So it's pudding-like, right? But if you were to make it into a pie, which is how I did it the first time, it needed to sit in the freezer for a couple hours, especially with a pie where it's all sitting together. But if you were to separate it out in ramekins, it wouldn't take as long. So that is the tofu pudding. Yeah. Another recipe that we have on your recipe guide is a tofu scramble. I really want to emphasize, do not get silken tofu for your tofu scrambles, okay? The texture is not the same. You'll want to get extra firm tofu for the tofu scramble because it also, you'll want to really drain out the extra firm. I think that's a mistake that people skip over in tofu recipes. Like, oh, I'll just crumble it up, it'll dry out. No, it won't. You'll thank yourself later if you go ahead and press out the additional fluid from the tofu. It just makes a way better experience. I've done the legwork. So yeah, we love tofu because it's a plant protein. It's a complete plant protein. It's lean. Soy is good for us in moderation. There's a lot of debate about soy, and I don't necessarily want to get entirely into it, but I will say that some of those studies that were done, people were consuming massive amounts of soy, and there's no way consuming tofu on a regular basis would impact cancer risk or things like that. So soy is actually a good part of our diet. So just a little clarification on that. But yeah, I hope you enjoy these recipes. I know some of these are my favorites, so thank you. We'll switch it over to Rashonda.
Okay, here I go. And some technical difficulties, but we got it. Okay. Yes, Maggie, thank you for again introducing us to this delicious pudding. I cannot wait to try it. And I would say for myself, tofu is one thing that I have toyed with a little bit, but not a lot. But the more I see recipes like this, it really opens up the possibilities of utilizing the different menu in different meals. And again, knowing that it's really a highly plant-based protein source is great for anyone that are more plant-based eaters. And again, there's so many different ways you can use tofu. So I want to encourage you all to try this recipe and then just kind of take it from there and try some different ones. You'd probably be pleasantly surprised and pleasantly satisfied with that. Okay, so now Maggie, again, thank you for sharing with us your expertise in tofu. We're going to got a few more slides to share. I think it's going to be one that some of you guys have been familiar with when it comes to the trends that we have actually found, the myths that we have when it comes to fueling. So, so now we're going to talk a little bit about the myths and trends when it comes to like fueling. So I didn't really tell you guys, but I'm a sports dietitian. I specialize with sports dietetics with athletes. So this is kind of my wheelhouse, you know? And so when I hear different myths about nutrition and food and things you're eating to give your energy, I kind of, you know, I just smile, but I do know that there's more to it. And I understand more so how the body is fueled versus sometimes the way things are marketed. So some myths and some trends that we kind of have seen is like carb loading. You know, that's when we have like heavy carb amounts in one given time to prepare for like particularly like a run. When we say carb loading, there is a spectrum of what carb loading can be. And if you're going to do like a 5-10 mile run in the morning, you don't necessarily need to be heavy in carb loading. You definitely make sure you have a good amount of carbs before you run that morning. But unless you're doing like a marathon or you're doing something more strenuous, then yes, you want to have a good amount of carbs at nighttime, but not overly, because you want to build those glycogen stores that you can be tapped into when you get into those runs. But carb loading doesn't mean we eat like a big bowl of pasta. It may just mean that we add a little bit more carbs for our meal the day before. And again, it depends on your level of training, depends on what the event is. Carb load really is how you're titrating more carbs in your meals 2 or 3 days before your run, so that when you are in that long run, again, we're talking about marathons, things like that, your body has those stores they can tap into for its endurance and its fueling. But if you're just going for a 5 to 10 mile run in the morning, I don't think we need the carb load. Just have, good amount of breakfast and have things with you, because you'll probably need that in between. Supplements. Supplements is we have natural supplements. We have supplements that are just labeled as creating certain benefits to performance. When it comes to supplements, supplements are used just as it says, to supplement. Our body can actually function at a high rate without any supplements. We need supplements. Our body doesn't have the ability to absorb certain nutrients. Or if we're taking certain medication that kind of counters our body's ability to again absorb things, or we just have a deficiency. So unless we have any of those type of conditions, we don't really need to focus on supplements. But if we do have there are natural herbs, there are natural foods that we can have, again, that contributes to benefiting our body in certain ways. But be very careful in the world of supplements, because it's a lot of marketing. There are some supplements out there that are great, but there are a lot of marketing in regards to telling us that we are getting such a benefit. And a lot of times it's just, just something that have caffeine added to it. So it makes us feel like we're stimulated, but it's not really providing our body. It's not really evidence-based. It's increasing sports performance or exercise performance. Typical, just normal supplement, I say that can be an everyday thing. It's like protein powder, that's known to help help impact protein synthesis, which is the building of our muscle tissue. It's a quick, easy way to get some good protein in after your workout. So protein shakes, protein powders are great forms of supplements. We have other natural supplements too. Creatine is one. It is a natural supplement, but we don't really need creatine. It's given for maybe young athletes that really want to increase their muscle, the bulking. But again, that's not particularly something we just want to stay healthy. So let's not really focus on those supplements. Sports drinks can go from array. We have energy drinks, which you see here, the example here. Energy drinks are just as it is. It's the word energy drinks. You think we drink them, it's going to give us energy. Well, it has B12 vitamins in it, and it has caffeine in it, which stimulates our sympathetic system, gets our heart rate up, gives us a mental stimulation, but it doesn't give our body fueling. Caffeine doesn't convert into glucose, right? B12 doesn't convert into glucose. So making sure that you're not just taking an energy drink to give your body energy when it's not really, it's more of a psychological energy versus physiological energy. And it can have a caveat to it, because if we think we can run fast or run longer because we have this theoretical energy, our body can't keep up with that. And then we're prone to injury. We're prone to body fatigue. We're prone to muscle fatigue. So just be very wary about you leaning on only sports drinks or energy drinks to provide the energy, because What provides energy is your food. As far as sports drinks for electrolyte purposes, like our Gatorades or Gatorade Lights or sorry, G2, there are electrolyte sports drinks. Those are fine because they do provide those electrolytes that our body needs to keep our body hydrated. It does have a level of carbs in there, which is good for fueling. So those be more of a safer thing. I'll definitely go for lower sugar ones or more natural ones to provide for your exercise activity. When it comes to what you need for your activity, it's not a blanket statement. Everyone needs the same exact thing. We all have different activities. We all are different sizes, different shapes. We are different genders or different ages. So there's not a one size fits all nutrition. So that's why I say this presentation is meant to give you guys an understanding of the importance of how you should feel your body, but it's still gonna be a different differentiation between how much you need for your respective activity. So I'm hoping that this presentation was helpful for you. I hope some of the recipes that was provided for you give me some ways to kind of step out there and try some new things. And I want to encourage you all as you're stepping into this warmer season to be enthused about exercise activity, get your workouts in the way you want, get the good walks in, but just make sure that you're listening to your body and fueling it appropriately. So we want to carve out a few moments. We have about 5 or 10 minutes, and anyone that wants to ask questions, want to create an opportunity to do so. And it can be via chat, or it can be, you can ask a question, unmute yourself and ask a question as well. So we have a question here. Let's see. Oh, glad that you guys enjoyed it. You're welcome. And anytime there is any, again, more, we offer these consultations for all you employees. So you guys ever want to dig in deeper with that, feel free to reach out to our website and book a time with one of our wellness consultants, and we may be able to help you with your particular need or questions that you have in regards to not just sports activity, but anything related to your health. And I'll be on here for a few moments, 3 more moments for anyone have any questions. Sure, you got some questions out there. Feel free to ask. This is your time to ask those exercise questions or those fueling questions. Okay, well, this again presentation is recorded, so you'll have the ability to look at it again. If you didn't get take notes, be able to come back to it on our Microsoft Teams page, and that way you guys can come back to it, take notes, relearn some things. It'll always be there for you for your benefit. So thank you all for participating and being a part of our wellness workshop, and we will see you next time.